I didn't see it coming, not really. Looking back, I can find all the signs, little moments that should have told me something was wrong, but at the time, they felt like nothing, like the usual tiredness that builds up in a marriage after years of bills, late nights, and dishes left in the sink. We were supposed to be okay. We were supposed to be the couple that made it. I still remember that Tuesday when everything cracked open. I came home late from work, the smell of rain still on my jacket, the grocery bags digging lines into my palms because I refused to take 2 trips from the truck. I walked into the kitchen, expecting to see her there, scrolling on her phone or stirring something on the stove, but she was sitting at the table, staring at a cold cup of coffee, her face pale in the harsh light. "Hey, baby." I dropped the bags, trying to sound casual, hoping she'd look up, smile, give me something to pull me back from the edge I didn't know I was on. She didn't look at me. She just took a breath, set her cup down, and said, "I don't think I want to do this anymore." The world went quiet. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock on the wall, the faint drip of water in the sink, but it was all far away. I stood there, the rain soaking through my shirt, and tried to make sense of the words hanging between us. "Do what?" I asked, my voice low, trying to keep it steady. She finally looked up, her eyes tired, hollow in a way that scared me. "Us. This. I don't think I want to be in this marriage anymore." I laughed. I didn't mean to, but it came out, sharp and bitter, echoing off the tile floor. "Are you serious? We've had a rough few months, yeah, but this? You're just done." She didn't blink, didn't flinch, just nodded once, slow, like it hurt her. "I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry." I remember gripping the back of a chair, my knuckles turning white, the room spinning around me. I wanted to yell, to beg, to throw something, to do anything that would shake her out of this, but I just stood there, frozen, feeling like a stranger in my own home. Why? It was all I could manage. She shook her head, tears welling up but not falling. "I'm tired. I'm tired of trying to be something I'm not. I'm tired of pretending I'm happy when I'm not. I can't give you what you want." "And what is it that I want, huh?" My voice was shaking now, anger boiling up under the fear. A wife who actually wants to be here? A partner who tries? That's too much to ask. She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I'm sorry." That was all she said, over and over, like it was supposed to fix something. I left the kitchen, went into the bedroom, shut the door, and slid down against it, pressing the heels of my palms into my eyes until I saw sparks. I could hear her moving around, opening cabinets, the soft clink of a glass being set down. The normal sounds of a home, but nothing was normal anymore. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while she lay next to me, facing the wall, the space between us a canyon I didn't know how to cross. I reached out once, my fingers brushing her shoulder, but she flinched, pulling away like my touch burned her. I pulled my hand back, staring at it in the dark, wondering when I became someone she couldn't stand to touch. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up, her side of the bed cold, the smell of her shampoo lingering in the pillow. I sat there, the morning light creeping in around the curtains, and I felt empty, like everything inside me had been scooped out and replaced with a hollow ache. I went to work like nothing had happened, nodding and smiling, fixing pipes and replacing broken heaters, my hands moving on autopilot while my mind replayed her words over and over. "I don't think I want to do this anymore." I heard it when I tightened bolts, when I carried my tool bag, when I sat in my truck during lunch staring at my cold coffee. I didn't tell anyone. Not Eli, not my brother, not even my mom when she called that night to check in. I couldn't say it out loud because saying it would make it real, and I wasn't ready for that yet. When I got home, she was sitting on the couch, the TV playing some show she wasn't watching, her eyes red. She looked at me when I walked in, and for a moment, I saw the woman I married, the one who used to dance barefoot in the kitchen, who laughed at my dumb jokes, who held my hand when we drove nowhere in particular. "We need to talk," she said softly. And I knew in that moment that everything was about to change. I didn't sit down. I couldn't. I stood by the door, keys still in my hand, my heart pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it. She looked at me, eyes puffy, hair pulled back in a loose bun, her hands clenched in her lap like she was holding herself together with the last bit of strength she had left. "I don't want to fight," she said, her voice small. "Good," I said, harsher than I meant, but I didn't take it back. "Because I don't have it in me tonight." She nodded, looking down, her shoulders shaking as she took a breath. "I don't know how we got here." "Yeah," I laughed bitterly, tossing my keys on the counter, the jingle echoing in the quiet room. "Me neither." She looked up then, her eyes filled with tears. Derek, I don't hate you. I need you to know that. I don't hate you. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms over my chest to keep them from shaking. Then why are you doing this? Her lips trembled, and she wiped a tear from her cheek. Because I'm not happy. Because I'm empty, Derek. I don't know how to explain it, but I can't keep pretending. Pretending what? My voice rose despite the promise I made to myself not to yell. That you love me? That this marriage meant something to you? She flinched, tears streaming down her face now. Don't do that. Please don't do that. What do you expect me to do? I snapped, pushing off the counter, pacing the small living room, my boots heavy on the floor. You dropped this on me, tell me you're done, and I'm supposed to just say okay? Is that what you want? She covered her face with her hands, sobbing quietly, her body shaking with the force of it. I stopped pacing, the anger draining out of me, leaving only exhaustion behind. Sam, I sighed, rubbing my face, feeling the stubble scratch against my palms. I don't know what you want from me. She lowered her hands, her eyes red and swollen, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know either. We stood there, the silence heavy, broken only by her quiet sobs and the hum of the fridge. I wanted to hold her, to pull her close, to promise her we'd figure it out, but I couldn't move. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath my feet, and I was too scared to take a step in any direction. I don't want to hurt you, she whispered. Too late, I replied, my voice flat. She wiped her eyes, taking a shaky breath. I think I need to stay with my sister for a while. Just to think. I nodded, looking away, staring at the dent in the wall from when I moved the couch in too fast, remembering how we laughed about it, how she teased me for not measuring first. It felt like a lifetime ago. When? I asked, my voice hoarse. Tomorrow, she whispered, like she was afraid of the word. I nodded again, swallowing hard, trying to keep the tears from falling. Okay. She stood up, walking past me toward the bedroom, and I smelled her shampoo as she passed, the scent hitting me like a punch to the gut. I closed my eyes, breathing in, trying to memorize it, afraid it would be the last time I'd smell it in this house. The door closed softly behind her, and I stood there, staring at the empty space she left behind, the hum of the fridge the only sound in the house. That night, I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, the darkness pressing in around me. I could hear her moving in the bedroom, the sound of drawers opening and closing, the quiet rustle of clothes being folded. I wondered if she was crying. I wondered if she felt like her world was ending too. I thought about getting up, going to her, telling her we could fix it, that we could try, that I would do whatever it took to make her happy again. But I didn't move. Because deep down, I knew it wasn't just about me. It wasn't just about us. It was about her. And the emptiness she couldn't fill, and the life she felt she was missing. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of her suitcase rolling across the floor, the soft click of the front door opening, the cold air rushing in as she stepped outside. I didn't get up. I didn't say goodbye. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her leaving. When the door closed, the silence was deafening. I finally sat up, rubbing my hands over my face, the weight of it all pressing down on me. The house was empty, and it felt bigger than it ever had, every room echoing with memories I wasn't ready to face. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and made a cup of coffee, the routine grounding me, giving me something to focus on. I stood by the window, staring out at the driveway, her car gone, the space she left behind as empty as the house, as empty as I felt. And I realized, for the first time, that she might not come back. The first few days felt like I was floating. Everything looked the same but felt wrong, like walking through a movie set that used to be my life. Her coffee mug still sat on the counter, a lipstick stain on the rim that I couldn't bring myself to wash off. Her sweater was draped over the back of the couch, the one she'd always pull on when the house got too cold, sleeves pushed up to her elbows while she flipped through the channels, never watching anything long enough to remember it. I went to work like I always did. Fixed busted pipes, replaced a broken water heater for a retired couple who still called each other babe after 40 years together. I listened to them bicker about thermostat settings and wondered how they did it, how they held on when everything around them must have pulled them apart 1,000 times. I wanted to ask, what's the secret? But I didn't. I just smiled, nodded, said, have a good day, and loaded my tools back into the truck. Eli called on Wednesday. He could tell something was off before I said a word. That's the thing about friends who've seen you drunk, angry, laughing your ass off at 2 in the morning in some bar's parking lot. They can hear it in your voice when the floor is falling out beneath you. You want to talk about it? He asked, voice low, like he didn't want to spook me. I sat in the cab of my truck, window cracked, the smell of wet leaves drifting in on the breeze. Sam left, I said, staring at my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. He was quiet for a long second. Then, you want company? I almost said no. Almost told him I was fine. But I wasn't. So I said, yeah, come by later. That night, we sat in my garage, the door half open to let the spring air in, 2 beers sweating on the workbench between us. Eli didn't push. He never did. He let me talk when I could, and when I couldn't, he filled the silence with dumb stories about high school, about his cousin getting arrested for stealing lawn gnomes, about the time we almost got kicked out of a Titans game for heckling the ref too loud. I laughed, and it felt foreign, like stretching a muscle I hadn't used in years. When the laughter died, the ache settled back in, but at least for a minute, it wasn't all-consuming. What are you going to do? Eli asked, nursing his beer. I shrugged. Give her space, I guess. Wait. Hope she figures out what she wants. He nodded, scratching at the label on his bottle. And what do you want? I didn't answer him. Because the truth was, I didn't know anymore. I wanted her back, but not like this. Not half here, half somewhere else in her head. I wanted the woman who looked at me like I was enough. The woman who reached for me in the dark just to feel me there. But I didn't know if she existed anymore. The garage got quiet after that. We sat there until the beer was warm and the mosquitoes found us. And then he clapped me on the shoulder, said, call me if you need me, and left me there, staring at the empty chair across from me. The nights were the worst. I'd lie on my side of the bed, her pillow untouched, the sheets still smelling like her shampoo. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, tired, sad, looking at me like she'd already decided I couldn't fix what was broken. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night, half hoping I'd hear her car in the driveway, the door opening, her keys rattling in the bowl by the front door. But it was always just the creak of the house settling, the hum of the fridge, the tick of the old wall clock. After a week, I called her. Not because I wanted to fight, God knows we'd done enough damage with silence alone, but because the quiet was driving me mad. I needed to hear her voice, even if it was just to tell me she hadn't changed her mind. She answered on the second ring, her voice soft, careful, like she was bracing for something. Hey, I said back, my throat tight. How's your sister? She gave a small, tired laugh. Annoying, but she means well. There was a beat of silence between us, and I closed my eyes, imagining her on the other end, maybe sitting on her sister's porch, blanket pulled around her shoulders, phone pressed to her ear like she used to do when we first started talking, when we'd stay up so late whispering that we'd fall asleep mid-sentence. You okay? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, I don't know. I swallowed, the words catching in my chest. Do you think about coming home? Another pause. I could hear her breathing, could hear her trying to find words that wouldn't crush me. I don't know, Derek. I don't know what I want yet. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. Okay. I'm sorry, she whispered, and I could hear the tears in her voice. I never wanted to hurt you. Yeah, I said, voice rough. Me neither. When we hung up, I sat there with my phone in my lap, the quiet pressing in again, heavier than before. Because now it wasn't just silence, it was her absence, ringing louder than any slammed door ever could. I knew I couldn't force her to come back. I knew if I did, it wouldn't mean anything. But part of me wanted to get in my truck, drive to her sister's place, pound on the door, and ask her to just try. To come home, sit at the table with me, drink bad coffee, and figure this out one hard conversation at a time. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there until the dawn crept through the curtains again, whispering a truth I didn't want to hear. Sometimes loving someone isn't enough to keep them. And sometimes, staying means losing yourself too. I tried to keep busy after that call, telling myself that if I just stayed moving, maybe the silence in the house wouldn't feel so loud. I went to work early, took extra jobs when Eli offered them, came home late, ate leftovers standing at the counter, and fell asleep on the couch in the clothes I wore all day. People noticed. The old man whose gutters I fixed asked if I was sleeping enough, said I looked like I'd been punched by a ghost. Eli started leaving me extra coffees on the hood of my truck, not saying a word, but giving me a look that told me he knew I was unraveling. At night, the quiet was worst. I'd walk around the house, flipping on lights I didn't need, standing in the doorway of the bedroom staring at the made bed, untouched, her pillow still there like an accusation. I'd walk back into the kitchen, stand in front of the open fridge, not hungry, just needing something to do. One night, I found myself in the garage, pulling open the toolbox and grabbing a wrench, tightening bolts on the old motorcycle I'd been fixing for 3 years. It didn't need it, but the turning of the wrench, the pressure in my hands, the scrape of metal on metal, it was something real, something that made sense when nothing else did. I thought about calling her again, 100 times, thumb hovering over her name on my phone, but I didn't. What would I say? Please come home so I can keep pretending we're okay? Or worse, take your time, when all I wanted to do was tell her I couldn't breathe without her here. The days kept coming anyway. I went to work. I came home. I didn't talk about it. I let the quiet become normal, even though it never stopped hurting. Then, one Friday, Eli showed up at my place with a six-pack and a bag of takeout, knocking like he owned the place, not giving me a chance to say no. He set the food down on the kitchen counter, opened a beer, and pushed it into my hand. Eat, he said, like he was talking to a stray dog. I tried to protest, but he shot me a look, and I shut up, taking a bite of the cold fries, that taste like cardboard but better than the emptiness in my mouth for days. We sat on the back porch, him talking about work, about a fight he saw at the gas station, about the Titans blowing another game, and I let him fill the silence. At some point, he paused, cracked open another beer, and said, "You know, it's okay to fall apart for a while." I didn't answer, just took a drink, staring out at the dark yard where the porch light barely reached. "She might come back," he continued, softer. "But you gotta be okay even if she doesn't." That was the thing. I didn't know how to be okay without her. I didn't know how to live in this house that felt too big, sleep in that bed that felt too cold, drink coffee in the morning without her sitting across from me, hair messy, eyes sleepy, giving me that small smile that used to make the day worth it. "I don't know if I can," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Eli didn't say anything for a long time. Then he nodded, took a sip of his beer, and said, "Then fake it till you can." We finished the beers in silence, the night air cool, the sound of crickets filling the spaces where words should have been. When he left, I stood in the doorway, watching his taillights disappear down the road, the quiet settling in again like a weight on my chest. I went inside, washed the empty bottles, wiped down the counter, trying to keep my hands busy, my mind empty. I caught a glimpse of myself in the microwave door, hair a mess, dark circles under my eyes, a man I barely recognized. I looked tired, old, alone. That night, I slept in our bed for the first time since she left. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling, the sheets cold around me. I closed my eyes and tried to remember the sound of her laughter, the way she used to tuck her feet under my legs when we watched movies, the way she smelled after a shower, the soft sigh she made when she fell asleep. I fell asleep at some point, dreaming of her standing in the kitchen, sunlight coming through the window, her hair glowing, her eyes on me, smiling like she used to. I reached for her, but she was already gone, the dream fading, leaving me with nothing but the sound of my own breathing in the dark. The next morning, I woke up to an empty house, the clock on the wall ticking, the coffee pot silent. I sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing my hands over my face, trying to find the strength to stand up. Because no matter how much it hurt, the world wasn't going to stop for me. The bills would keep coming. The jobs would keep needing to be done. And I had to keep going, even if I was doing it alone. So I got up. I made coffee. I got in my truck and drove to work, the morning sun rising in the sky, indifferent to the pieces of me that were still scattered in the silence she left behind. Work became my lifeline. It was the only place where the silence in my head wasn't louder than the world around me. The clanging of tools, the hum of machinery, the smell of metal and oil, the hiss of a torch, all of it drowned out the questions that had nowhere else to go. Eli kept me busy, throwing jobs my way, and I took every one, no matter how small. Fixing a leaking sink for a single mom whose kid was sick. Changing out a busted water heater for an old man who tried to pay me in quarters and stories about Vietnam. Crawling under houses, getting insulation in my eyes, the dirt under my nails proof I was still moving, still breathing, even when everything inside me felt stuck. I stopped going home for lunch. I'd eat in the truck, staring out at parking lots, watching people come and go, families piling into minivans, couples arguing quietly in the front seats, kids laughing and chasing each other around carts. I wondered if they knew how fragile it all was, how one conversation in a quiet kitchen could tear it all down. At night, I'd drive home with the radio off, the hum of the tires on the pavement louder than the country songs that used to keep me company. I'd pull into the driveway, sit there with the engine running, headlights cutting through the darkness, illuminating the front porch where she used to stand waiting for me when I got home late. Sometimes I'd see the curtain move, like a ghost of her still lived in that house, waiting for me to come inside. But when I opened the door, it was just me, the empty rooms echoing every step I took. One Friday night, I found myself standing in the middle of the kitchen, holding her coffee mug, the one with the chipped handle she refused to throw away. I turned it over in my hands, feeling the smooth ceramic, the rough edge of the chip, the ghost of her lips on the rim. I set it back down, carefully, like it might break if I let go too fast. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, walked out to the back porch, and sat on the steps, looking up at the sky. It was clear, stars spread out like salt on black velvet, the moon hanging low, bright enough to light up the yard. I took a sip, letting the cold bitterness ground me. I thought about calling her again, just to hear her voice, even if it was only to say she still didn't know what she wanted. I wanted to tell her about the job I did that day, about the old man who shook my hand and told me I reminded him of his son, about the way the air smelled like spring after the rain. But I didn't call. I just sat there, beer in hand, the night air cool on my skin, the loneliness sitting next to me like an old friend I never wanted to see again. I didn't know how long I sat there before my phone buzzed in my pocket. For a second, I let myself believe it was her, calling to say she was coming home, that she missed me, that she was ready to try. But it was Eli. "You alive, man?" he texted. "Yeah." I typed back. There was a pause, then, "Good. You're tomorrow." Yeah. It wasn't much, but it was something. That weekend, Eli and I sat in his garage, the game on the radio, two folding chairs pulled up to a workbench cluttered with tools and empty coffee cups. We didn't talk about her. We didn't talk about me. We just drank beer, argued about football, and let the noise of the world fill the spaces where the silence used to live. At one point, Eli looked over at me, a serious look in his eyes I hadn't seen before. "You're gonna get through this, Derek." I nodded, looking down at the bottle in my hand. "Yeah," I said, though I didn't know if I believed it. "No, listen," he said, leaning forward. "You're gonna get through this because you don't have a choice. You're too damn stubborn to quit, and you know it." I cracked a smile, the first real one in days. "Yeah, maybe." He slapped my shoulder, hard enough to sting, and leaned back. "Definitely." That night, I drove home feeling lighter, the darkness not so heavy, the silence in the house still there, but not crushing me the way it used to. I walked into the kitchen, flipped on the light, and stood there for a moment, letting the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock, the quiet of the house settle around me. Then I grabbed her coffee mug, the chipped one, and washed it, drying it carefully, setting it back on the shelf. I didn't know if she'd ever come back for it, if she'd ever walk through that door again, but it felt like something I needed to do. I went to bed, the sheets still cold, the pillow next to me still untouched. But I closed my eyes, letting the exhaustion pull me under. And for the first time in weeks, I slept. The mornings started to get easier, not because the hurt was gone, but because I stopped expecting it to leave. I'd wake up, stare at the ceiling for a few minutes, let the quiet settle before swinging my legs out of bed and planting my feet on the cold floor, grounding myself before the day began. Coffee, shower, work, drive. It became a rhythm I could follow, a small promise to myself that I would keep going, even if I didn't know where I was going anymore. The first time she called me after weeks of nothing, I was standing in the grocery store, staring at a shelf of pasta sauce, trying to remember which one she always bought. My phone buzzed, her name lighting up the screen, and I just stood there, breath caught in my throat, people moving around me like I was invisible. "Hey," I answered, my voice cracking more than I wanted it to. "Hey," she replied, quiet, tired. I could hear voices in the background, the clatter of dishes, the TV on low, her sister's laugh. All of it sounded like a world I didn't belong to. "You okay?" I asked, fingers gripping the handle of the cart. "I don't know," she admitted, and I could hear her trying not to cry. We stood in that silence, the hum of the store mixing with the ache in my chest. I wanted to ask her if she was coming home, if she missed me, if she still loved me, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "I miss you." She let out a breath, shaky, like she'd been holding it for days. "I miss you too." That was all she could give me, and I took it, clutching those words like a lifeline, even if they didn't mean what I wanted them to mean. "Take care of yourself, Sam," I said softly. "You too, Derek." The call ended, and I stood there for a long time, the jar of sauce in my hand, blinking back the sting in my eyes before finally tossing it into the cart and finishing my shopping. That night, I sat on the back porch, the air warm with the promise of summer, the smell of cut grass hanging in the breeze. I thought about her, about us, about the way things used to be, and I let myself feel it, all of it, without trying to push it down or pretend it didn't hurt. I didn't know if she was coming back. I didn't know if we'd ever sit on this porch together again, her feet in my lap, laughing about something dumb, the world feeling small and safe for a while. But I knew I still loved her, even if it was messy, even if it was broken. A few days later, I found myself at Eli's place, helping him fix the fence in his backyard. We worked in the sun, sweat dripping down our backs, the smell of dirt and cedar filling the air. It felt good to use my hands, to feel tired in a way that made sense. During a break, we sat on the tailgate of his truck, drinking water, watching the kids down the street ride their bikes in circles, their laughter ringing out into the quiet afternoon. "You gonna be okay?" Eli asked, not looking at me. I shrugged, taking a sip. "Yeah, I think so." He nodded, tapping the bottle against his knee. "Good. Because you deserve to be." That stuck with me. I'd never thought about what I deserved. I just did what needed to be done, took what life gave me, kept my head down and worked. But maybe I did deserve more than this constant ache. Maybe we both did. That night, I went home and cooked myself a real dinner for the first time in weeks. Nothing fancy, just some chicken and rice, the way she used to make it, with too much pepper because she liked it that way. I sat at the table, eating alone, the house quiet around me, but it didn't feel as heavy as it used to. I washed the dishes, wiped down the counters, and stood there for a moment, looking around the kitchen, remembering the way she used to dance barefoot while she cooked, humming under her breath, hair tied up messily. I missed her. God, I missed her. But for the first time, I didn't feel like I was drowning in it. I went to bed that night, the window open, the breeze carrying in the scent of summer and the sound of crickets. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, letting the cool air wash over me, and I realized that I was still here, still breathing, still alive. And maybe that was enough for now. The next morning, I woke up before the sun, the sky still dark, the house quiet except for the creaks in the walls and the hum of the fridge down the hall. I lay there for a moment, listening to the soft sounds of the world waking up, the birds starting to sing outside, the occasional car passing on the street, headlights sweeping across the bedroom window. I got up, made coffee, and sat on the back steps, the mug warm in my hands, steam curling into the cool morning air. I thought about how many mornings we'd spent like this, her curled up next to me, head on my shoulder, coffee in her hand, feet tucked under her to keep warm. I thought about how quiet she'd gotten those last few months, how her smiles had gotten smaller, how her eyes had started to look past me instead of at me. I missed her every day. But I realized, sitting there with the sun slowly rising, that missing her didn't have to break me anymore. The days moved forward, one after another, and I moved with them. Work, groceries, fixing the leaky sink I'd ignored for weeks, taking the trash out on Thursday nights. Life was small, quiet, but it was still life, and it was still mine, even if it looked different than I thought it would. Eli kept checking in, dragging me out for a beer after work, forcing me to sit on his porch while he grilled burgers and talked about nothing in particular. I didn't know how to tell him how much it meant, how much it helped, having someone who didn't need me to be okay, who was just there, steady and simple. One Saturday morning, I found myself at the farmer's market, walking between the stalls, the smell of fresh bread and coffee in the air, families bustling around, kids tugging on their parents' hands, asking for cookies, pointing at flowers. It was the first time in a long time I felt like I was part of the world again, like I wasn't just moving through it, invisible and heavy. I bought a loaf of bread from an older woman who smiled at me like she knew I needed it, who put an extra roll in the bag without saying a word. I sat on a bench with my coffee, breaking off pieces of the warm bread, watching the people around me, the simple, ordinary happiness of it all. And I realized that I wanted that again. Someday. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. I wanted to feel connected to someone again, to laugh with someone, to have small moments that meant everything. I wanted to let myself hope for more than just getting through the day. Later that afternoon, as I was folding laundry, my phone buzzed on the counter. Her name lit up the screen, and I froze, the shirt in my hands half folded, the world narrowing to that moment. I answered, my voice steady. Hey, hey. Her voice was soft, careful, but there was something in it I hadn't heard in a while. Warmth. Hope. How are you? I asked, leaning against the counter, bracing myself. I'm better, she said, letting out a breath. I've been thinking a lot. About us. About everything. I didn't say anything, letting her fill the silence. I don't know what happens next, she continued, her voice trembling a little. But I miss you. and I want to see you. My eyes stung, and I swallowed hard, blinking back the tears. I'd like that, I managed to say. We didn't make promises. We didn't talk about forever. We just talked about meeting for coffee, about taking it slow, about seeing where we were, who we were now. And that was enough. For now, it was enough. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, the quiet in the house feeling different, lighter, like the air had shifted. I finished folding the laundry, made myself dinner, and sat at the table, the chair across from me empty, but not as heavy as it used to be. I ate slowly, letting myself taste the food, letting myself be there in that moment, grateful for the smallness of it, the simplicity. When I went to bed that night, I opened the window, letting the cool air in, the sound of crickets filling the room. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, letting the darkness settle around me, not afraid of it anymore. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. It wasn't loud, and it wasn't easy, but it was there, quiet and steady, reminding me that I was still here, still breathing, still alive. And that maybe, just maybe, I was going to be okay.